plating where it's like tit for tat. It's like, oh, you didn't do this for me, so I didn't do this for you. Let's dig into what I'd like to call, and we'll call it a secret, even though I don't think it's a secret. I think it's more of an awareness. Let's go for number one, which is clarity. Clarity. And write that down, everybody. And clarity, there's three pieces to clarity. And here's the three pieces: before, during, and after. And I want you, if you're in a relationship or were in a relationship, I want you to think about what happened beforehand. Like, what did you think this relationship was going to be all about, right? What was the earliest lessons you learned? Like, you thought this relationship was going to be this knight in shining armor. You're pretty sure he was going to keep his sock drawer really good and his shoes next to the door. He was not going to leave no toothpaste in the sink at all. And you had this like beautiful fantasy. And on the flip side, right, you had that, you know, maybe your partner, if your wife was going to come every morning, you'd wake up and there was going to be, you know, fresh apple pancakes and all. Some of you are like, yeah, that's my life. And some of you are like, what? And you thought she would smile all the time and say nice things to you and scratch your back all the time, right? And then you start to say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Was this just a fantasy, a story I made up? Or did I never even share, right? Most relationships, from my experience, and I've helped a lot, and I've been in one for a long time, is expecting something that you never even explained you were expecting. Can you relate to that? Type in relate in the chat bar. And you never want to have a conversation about it because you're like, well, how do I explain that one to them? Their words of affirmation. You know, how do I tell them, like, I don't like those things or do those things or think those things or want to share those things? Let's look at the during bracket, because I think once you're in the soup, right? You're in the kitchen, you created this relationship. It's the during where all of a sudden makes the difference. I learned to a long-lasting relationship, something that's short-lasting relationship, right? Is what did your relationship start to become? What did it start to become when you started navigating the waters, right? Like, what were times where you felt disconnected? And what did you feel like during this journey? And some of you, like, if you're in a relationship now, type in the chat bar, like, how long have you been in the relationship? How long have you been in the relationship? In 8 years, 22? Like, some of you have navigated a whole lot of stuff. And I could just tell by the years, some of you are gonna navigate stuff, right? Like, let's look at what we navigate. In the beginning, it's so cool, isn't it? It's like, oh, what are we gonna have for, like, what are we gonna cook together, right? And you're like, let's go to the store. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And we buy pasta and garlic and you cook together. That goes for a little while, doesn't it? And then you're like, where's the Chinese food menu, right? And then that starts. Like, I don't want Chinese. Well, what do you want? And then you end up, you can't order from one place. So you get Chinese and pasta, right? And then you start to navigate that. And then there's responsibilities that come in. You go from renting a place to buying a place. You go from where you had a job to now you need a career. And you start to navigate that. And then, okay, type in who has kids. Type in kids in the chat bar. Who's got kids, right? And then kids come in, and the guy, a lot of times, and I can only talk from guys' perspective. My wife will chime in when she wants to talk from women's perspective, but I'll share from guys' perspective, right? Guy comes home and he's like, oh, how's everything going? And the mom's like, it's great. I got thrown up, you know, there was vomit 3 times, kid sick, dog chewed the couch, right? And everybody's navigating all of these different things. And what happens during the navigation is, instead of coming closer, the tug of war comes apart. And then you think it's done right? Because the kids grow up some, but type in the chat bar. Is it like ever done navigating different change? Is it ever done? It's not done because now the kids have adult things that you got to deal with, right? Did anybody figure out?
It's never done. It's just always different, always changing, always.
Yeah. Yeah. Amber says the wheels spin faster. Yeah. And then your kid, now our son is 22 and our daughter's 19, but did you ever notice like when they get sick, like most of the time they just turn 10 years old again? Did anybody figure that out? And my wife says when I get sick and I'm level 51, she says I turn into 10 years old again too, right? And she just loves when that happens. She's just like, you are very needy when you're sick. I think I'm doing, she's laughing. I could hear her all the way in the other room. I feel I'm doing pretty good at this. Sherry Hawkins, don't laugh at that, please. Okay. I think I'm doing pretty, I bet Patrick's a big baby too when he gets sick, right? Like we're just like, oh, I'm congested in this and that. And then you navigate, all of a sudden you start to make a good living. You start getting a lot of money or more money. And guess what happens then? Then your big complication is, what other house do you buy? And now when you're younger, buying a car is you just want it to run. When you start to do better in a life and relationship, it's like choosing paint. Have any of you had to choose paint for a house lately? Okay, I just seen a lot of men just had a nervous twitch. You're okay, guys. You're not doing it right now, right? It takes the only thing worse than choosing paint is choosing siding for a house, right? It's a big navigation. And all of this comes into the relationship, moves in and out. And that's all the things that happen during. And you know why it gets complicated? Because clarity gets distorted, right? We're not aligned. We don't get aligned. It's like one is seeing this room, right? With this unique couch, this unique paint, these lighting. And then the other person just sees the room done. I'm going to see the room done guy. I just want it done. Anybody else just get it done guy? You're just like, just get it done. Can I sit on the couch? It's good. Like, just get it done. Like we have this whole house we just redid and it was done. And now we've had a little fire in it and now it's undone. And I am just like, get this thing done, right? It's like, I don't even want to think. And my wife's just like, just color it this color paint. Because now she wants to get it done, right? So clarity is so important during the relationship for most of you right now. But what about the after, which we call the future? The future. The future for most of you, I would say for all of you, it gets very fuzzy. And because of the pandemic, it's fuzzier than ever, right? Do I travel? Do I not travel? Do we live here? Here's one thing I know the pandemic, and you tell me if it's true in the chat bar. The pandemic made one thing really clear: how you live and how you refuse to live. Is that true? Can you type in true in the chat bar? Like, like through the pandemic, like I will live in this size house, I won't live. I will live in this area, I won't live. I will live with this way, I won't live. Like, that's one thing the pandemic made very, very true. And if you look at the future of this with clarity, just look at the conflict. And we're not going to debate it here because I believe you have the choice to do what you want. But look at the conflict in relationships. Are you getting vaxxed? Are you not getting vaxxed? Are you wearing a mask? Or are you not? And all of a sudden, there's been arguments left and right, divorces over because one doesn't want to understand and get clear of the other. One is trying to say we must, and the other is saying, well, wait, we should each have an option to do what we want. And so you want to make sure you write a note. The future is only bright as long as it's supported and not feeling lopsided. As long as it feels supported and not lopsided. If I go and tell my wife, like, hey, I'm going here and I'm going to live here and I'm going to travel here. And then she's like, well, I'm not aligned with that. It's going to feel very lopsided. So we've learned to have conversations about, hey, what do you want? What do I want? Does it make sense?